Hello, my name is Tom Zeppeveld from Graphileon, and today I'm going to show you how GPT helped us build a working Graphileon configuration. I will do this on the question-driven Graph Explorer dashboard, which is a demo about the movie database in which movies and actors and directors are connected. This dashboard allows you to select movies from a list and bring them to the canvas. And when you select them on the canvas, questions will pop up that are relevant to the selected context. When you select a single movie, there is a question about the actors. When there are multiple movies selected, there's a question about who acted in both movies. And then you can bring Tom Hanks also into the picture. This basic functionality from the question-driven Explorer relies on the number of predefined questions, and that can be configured, but someone needs to be able to write these Cypher statements. That is why our first improvement was to ask the help of GPT to formulate Cypher statement based on a question in human language. What we did was then to include this question into the prompt, in which there was also information about the schema and further instructions. The problem, however, is that you probably don't want to send this kind of information like person names to ChatGPT. Ideally, you would replace it by a placeholder. But of course, just replacing this by person A doesn't give any results. So in our next iteration, we try to do two things. First, separate the query from the parameters, and also ask GPT to help us build the configuration. So we use exactly the same question, but in another form with another GPT prompt. And let's see what happens. We don't go directly to the creation, we put a step in between that shows us what GPT returns. Now, as you can see in the Cypher statement, GPT has inserted parameters. It lists the parameters also even with value, and also the keys it expects in the result. Now let's make it a little bit nicer, where the person can be found based on a combination in lowercase and contains, and I want other results, so that I can really have the information that I need to build a form and decide to which UI the output should go. As you can see, GPT has updated the Cypher statement now with the to lower and contains. It also returns the parameter that I can use to automatically build my form, and also the data types of the key it expects. So, well, this looks quite like a table. Now, when I click this build button, Graphileon will use its logic to get this Cypher statement, the parameters and the keys to create a configuration. Graphileon has created a shortcut to the current dashboard with an arbitrary generated name, and the name corresponds to the ID of the input view, which is the form in which you can see the field and the submit button. Then that is the query in which Graphileon has stored the Cypher statement with the parameters, and the parameters are coming from the submit trigger that take the parameters to the query. And then when successful, there is a very simple trigger to the table view in which the results will be displayed. Now, to show you the difference, I'm going to duplicate this browser tab so you can see that there is a new shortcut added. This is the 2156. So if I click that one, I get the form that was automatically configured, and then when I do a partial match on this Hanks string, I get the result that I was expecting. Now let's do something a little bit more complex when I have a lookup of two persons and the query is looking for connections. So when GPT returns it, you can see that there are two parameters, name A and name B, and edges. And when I build the configuration, you can see that there is a network view added to it. Okay, I have a new shortcut, 2164. So when I create another duplicate of the browser, you will see a 2164 shortcut. It opens a form with two parameters. Okay, if I'm doing this, now it will return both the table view and the network view. Table view is not very suited for this, but at least you can see what it returns. And if I do another try, let's say Jack Nicholson and Kevin, then you can see that it returns multiple paths with the query. So now let's have a look at how this process works of automatically generating these Graphileon configurations. We have the input view that takes the human language question that is fed to ChatGPT, and then that generates this results, the suggested cipher, and that cipher statement, including the parameters and the keys, is fed into a process that generates the entire application. So let's have a look at that. Graphileon has a mechanism of storing configurations as diagrams, so I can easily open that, and now I can look at what the process is to generate the application. I have here my input view, which corresponds to this form. If I edit it, I can see how it is done. I have my labels, my field names, and my buttons. And from my input view on submit, there is a trigger that points to the API call to GPT. And let's have a look at how the prompt is constructed. So the main part of the prompt consists of two messages: a system message that I use to tell how GPT should respond, and another message that includes the schema information and also the question in human language. And then I add a number of things to clarify to GPT what it wants and also how I want the result to be returned. Once I receive the result from GPT, I put it in the table view. This is not really a necessary step, but I did it to clarify what is happening. And then on the build action, which is a batch trigger from the table view that goes to the query, that really creates the configuration in the application store, because as you know, Graphileon applications are graphs as well. So you can see here the different create statements using the results from the Cypher statement, but also typical triggers between the query and the table view, and if there are nodes and edges, also between the query and the network view. And as you can see on the return statement, the entire path of the functions that have been created is then returned. And that one then goes to the network view. So that is basically what you see here. This is the configuration that was created. And that concludes my presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and especially that I was able to explain how you can use GPT to further increase the speed at which you can build applications in Graphileon. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.